About 20 years after Jack the Ripper, a serial killer named Hadj Mohammed Mesfewi was discovered in Morocco. He lived in the narrow streets of Marrakesh, which is an ancient Medina. Medina is Arabic for town or city, but the word is used today to describe the oldest part of a city in Arab countries. They have very narrow streets for pedestrians only. The houses and buildings are traditional in style, with no windows, and the streets don't follow a pattern making it resemble a maze. Mesfewi was a middle-aged cobbler who made shoes for a living, and he lived with a 70-year-old woman named Anna. He also sold groceries. In those times, people didn't own a store separate to their homes. When women came to buy groceries, he would offer them something to eat, which was laced with some sort of anesthetic to render them unconscious. After they passed out, who knows what he did to those young women, but he would go on to take their lives and dismember their bodies with the help of Anna and bury the bodies inside the shop. When there was no space left for the bodies inside, he buried them in the yard, probably under cover of night. When more than 30 young women went missing in his neighborhood, some people began to suspect him, but they had no proof. One of his victims' parents eventually traced their daughter's whereabouts to his shop and found some of her belongings on the property. They confronted him, causing a crowd to form who grabbed Mesfewi and Anna out of their shop and started to beat them, demanding that they confess. Badly beaten, Anna then told the crowd that the bodies were cut up and buried in the floors of the shop. She did not survive the torture. Mesfewi was also beaten, but he survived and was handed over to the police, who then raided the shop. When they dug up the floors, they found 20 bodies inside, and another 16 bodies were found in the garden outside. For context, Jack the Ripper had 5 victims, and his crimes drew attention all over the world. Mesfewi had 36 victims, whom he mutilated and buried inside his home. The world had never heard of such a gruesome case back then, so news of his deeds immediately drew international attention. He was then found guilty of 36 counts of murder, and due to public anger and disgust, he was sentenced to be crucified. People around the world were horrified by the verdict, so it was changed to beheading. The townspeople were not happy with the verdict, though. They wanted him to suffer, so he was brought out into the town every day and given 10 whips for a total of 4 weeks until his sentence were to be carried out. Finally, officials decided to give him a life sentence instead, except that this was no ordinary life sentence. He was to be sealed up inside a small opening in the walls of the town for the rest of his life. Stonemasons spent a few days preparing what was to be his tomb and only left a small opening for him to enter. On June 11, 1906, he was brought out to be placed within the wall. As he was being led to the gap in the wall, he tried to fight the guards and started howling for mercy, but no one felt sorry for him. He was chained to the back wall to prevent escape while the stonemasons walled him in. The crowd was initially silent as the wall was completed, but when Mesfewi began screaming in terror, the crowd cheered. Mesfewi screamed for mercy non-stop for 2 days. On the 3rd day, he fell silent. This is interesting because in the Ariel Castro case, every victim he kidnapped, he would tie them up and chain them in his soundproof basement for 2 days, where they would also scream until their voice was gone. After 2 days, they gave up on screaming and quietly accepted the fact that no one was coming to save them. Even for the 10 years that he kept them in his home, they did not attempt to scream again. Psychologically, they were broken down and they just accepted whatever fate awaited them. So I disagree with reports that say he passed away on the third day. This form of punishment is called immurement, which literally means being walled in Latin. The person doesn't suffocate, they slowly succumb to dehydration. With no food and no water, the maximum time a human body can survive is thought to be about 1 week.